By collapsing both wingtips, you decrease the wing area and increase the drag. Depending upon how much you pull the wingtips, the rate of descent may increase from gentle to up to 1,000 feet per minute, with a minor change in forward speed. This is normally a very benign maneuver and is a good way to introduce yourself to the characteristics of the canopy when partially collapsed. It is also a good method for producing a mild increase in sink rate and a significant reduction in glide ratio as an aid to landing approach. By pulling large big ears, you can decrease your glide angle dramatically. In turbulent landing zones, the use of big ears will increase the canopy loading and reduce the span, both of which may increase the resistance to collapses. Consult your owner's manual to ensure there are no specific warnings against using big ears or any precautions regarding the use of the speed bar with big ears, or any unique recommendations for entry and exit. Some manuals recommend entry and exit be done one tip at a time. Collapse the outward portions on both sides of the canopy by pulling down symmetrically on the outer A-riser, if split A-risers, or the outboardmost 1, 2, or 3 A-lines on each side until the canopy on each tip folds under. Hold the brakes normally. Reach as high as you can and grasp the outer A-riser or lines with your fingers. Pull down symmetrically to collapse the ears. Depending on the length of your arms and the adjustment of the brake lines and your harness, you may not be able to collapse the ears without releasing the brakes. Try using weight shift control to steer the canopy while holding the tips collapsed. You may also use differential big ears. Pull more on one A-riser group while letting up on the other side to increase your turning control. Release the A-lines symmetrically on both sides. Recovery from big ears is glider dependent. Most beginner wings will smoothly and spontaneously recover when released, which can make it difficult to use big ears and brakes at the same time. Some intermediate and advanced wings may remain in big ears when the A-lines are released, which can be handy if you want to use the brakes for mild turning. These gliders will require either weight shifting away from the stuck tip and/or a pump on the brake handles to reinflate the tips. Big ears is a safe and gentle maneuver when performed with limited turning. You should never combine big ears with higher G-loading maneuvers such as spiral descents, because you could exceed the design load on the individual lines and canopy attach points. You should be especially wary of entering a big ears-induced parachutage if your canopy is wet. The steeper descent angle and reduced wing area of big ears means the canopy is flying at a higher angle of attack. On some models, this may be close to a parachutage stall. You can increase the forward speed slightly and the safety margin in smooth conditions by applying speed bar with the big ears. Note, however, that although the overall average angle of attack for the wing is still relatively high, with the use of the speed bar, the angle of attack at the center section is reduced enough so that it may still be susceptible to a frontal collapse and turbulence. An accelerated frontal collapse with big ears can be very dramatic. Because of the small chance of a parachutage stall or surge on recovery, you should either recover at a sufficient altitude to correct for these problems, above 100 feet, or at a low enough altitude that it will not really matter. It is perfectly acceptable to wait to release the A-risers until you are pulling the brakes and the landing flare below 15 feet. Finally, remember that big ears gives an increased rate of descent, not an extreme rate of descent. There have been numerous landing accidents caused by pilots trying to aggressively recover from big ears only to induce a low altitude stall or collapse. Remember that even if your glider somehow remains in big ears and you do not even flare, your impact will be similar to that of landing under a round parachute. Certainly something that does not warrant extreme measures to avoid. B-line stall occurs when the B-lines are pulled downward sufficiently to destroy the airfoil shape. The loss of lift and increase in drag results in a vertical descent of nearly 2,000 feet per minute. A beeline stall can be useful for losing altitude rapidly in an emergency, such as if you were being sucked up into a cloud, and in some situations may be preferential to a spiral descent because it's easier to maintain orientation and recovery. The beeline stall is safe when performed on modern canopies and is easy to recover from, although a remote chance exists to enter a parachutage stall or spin when exiting. To enter, pull down on the bee riser slowly and evenly until the cord collapses down at the bee lines. As you pull the risers, you will initially feel an increase in pressure and then a decrease as the stall occurs. Most canopies retain a significant amount of pressure on the bee risers during the stall. If you plan on holding the stall for an extended period, you may find it less fatiguing to initially grasp the risers with your palms facing forward and your thumbs downward, and rotate your wrists forward and downward as you pull your arms down and tuck your elbows at your sides. The canopy will lose forward speed and the descent rate will increase dramatically. The internal pressure will drop and the canopy will bow upwards between the lines and take on a slack appearance. You cannot use the brakes while holding the bee risers down. Minor changes in heading can be done by using weight shift and a small amount of asymmetric pull on the bee risers. Pull more in the direction you wish to turn. Avoid large asymmetric pulls which could result in a spin entry. To recover, release the bee risers gently and evenly at a moderate rate, and the canopy will likely recover by itself. If it does not, grasp and pull down evenly on all the A risers until the canopy accelerates out of the stall. You may instead push forward on the speed stirrup if it is immediately available. If the B risers are not released at the same rate, a spin may result. Recovery from a beeline stall should be completed by 200 feet above ground level to ensure sufficient altitude exists to take corrective action. If you habitually fly with the brakes on to almost the point of stall, you are always on the edge of entering a full stall or spin. We do not recommend that you ever deliberately attempt to enter either a full stall or a spin except under the radio guidance of an experienced instructor. Even then, you should be intimately familiar with possible canopy motions and recovery techniques because they can be so dynamic that an instructor may be unable to interpret the canopy motions and tell you what to do in a timely enough manner. When the canopy enters a full stall, it will collapse rapidly and fall behind. You will swing forward and onto your back, and will feel yourself going weightless and falling as the lines go slack. Do not let up on the brakes yet because a rapid surge is inevitable, and raising the brakes puts you at risk of falling into the sail. Instead, hold the brake handles tightly and jam your hands together under your seat. When the canopy is back overhead, let up on the brakes at a moderate rate to shoulder level. The canopy will surge forward, so be prepared to apply brakes aggressively to limit the surge to no more than 30 degrees forward of vertical. With the surge controlled, ease off the brakes to resume level flight. Some forward surge is necessary for recovery, but you don't want to allow any chance of the canopy passing below you. If you let the brakes up too slowly, the glider may enter a parachutage stall. If you let them up asymmetrically, you may enter a spin. Although spins are not practiced by recreational pilots because of the possibilities of complications, knowledge of spin avoidance and proper recovery technique is important for the advancing pilot. A spin is caused by an asymmetric stall of the canopy which causes one wing to rotate backwards while the other rotates forward about a point within the span of the wing. One scenario which is highly likely to cause a spin is flying at the edge of stall with both brakes near 100% and then rapidly letting up on one brake or rapidly applying the other brake beyond the stall point, or both. Another way is to apply one brake on exit from a B-line stall, or to let the B risers up asymmetrically when recovering from a B-line stall. Finally, if you fly a glider that is too large for your size, you will need more brake application to generate a turn. Use caution to avoid an inadvertent spin entry. Spin entry is characterized by one wing stalling and flying backward along with a simultaneous softening of the brake pressure on the stalled side. If you use too much inside brake while turning, a banked spin can occur. The inside wing will suddenly stop flying and your rotation speed will pick up quickly. You must be prepared to immediately bring both brakes up to your shoulders to avoid a full-blown spin. You must be ready to immediately apply a short burst of brakes to moderate the surge and control the recovery. A flat spin is often caused by slowing the glider down to near stall, then using an asymmetric amount of brake. The glider descends vertically with little centrifugal force on the pilot. If you allow the glider to enter a fully developed spin, recovery can be much more dynamic and confusing. Canopies rotate very rapidly in a spin, and it is not uncommon for a significant collapse to result during the spin as well as during the recovery. Inadvertent brake application during the gyrations can also cause progressive spins or reversals. It is important to note the signs of an incipient spin. If things get quiet and a wing starts to back up, you should immediately let up on the brake on the slow wing. Do not wait for the spin to develop. The use of opposite brake in a spin should only be used to stop the rotation prior to a full stall recovery attempt. Excessive application of opposite brake can cause the canopy to enter a spin in the other direction. Hopefully, it is clear that full stalls and spins are extremely dangerous situations that should be avoided. There is no reason to fly in such a way as to expose yourself to these dangers. Leave yourself an adequate margin above stall when flying, and stay away from full stalls and spins.